Previously on Off the Cliff Pod, we've discussed, give me a couple pointers on how to be an endearing mark. Because if we're being honest, fans probably fit into that mark category, like with the best of intentions. So
it's not always derogatory.
Right. So how do you come off as not one of those marks, but maybe a lovable mark? So now that we've kind of got that down, what if I want to make the transition? What if I feel like I got it?
You're talking about to performer?
Oh, yeah. I think I have what it takes to step into the square octagon.
Well, you certainly wouldn't be alone in being a mark that thinks they can make the transition.
You telling me I could make the transition, bro?
I'm sure you could. I have no doubt you could. You'd be great. 100%. You would be awesome.
Because of my BWE days?
Maybe better than me. Maybe. So,
do you get a referral bonus? Is that where do you say this to everybody? It's like, Jake Oman.
You know what?
Sent me.
I think you need to go to the All-Star Pro Wrestling School in Shelbyville. Tell Dylan Bostic that Jake Oman sent you.
Wait, does Dylan instruct?
He may be starting to instruct soon. That's why I said that.
Does Dylan listen?
No.
Oh, I feel like I need to talk to that guy.
He should. He's on the road enough.
Well, Dylan doesn't really know who I am at all. And by doesn't really, that's probably an exaggeration. I'm confident he has no idea who I am.
Fair.
I just want to sit down with him and give him the talk. Be like, bro, quit effing around. Get stuff done. That man spends too much time effing around and not enough time getting stuff done.
I don't agree with that, but I would love to hear you say that to him.
I will. I'll say it right to his face.
Perfect. Let's do it.
He got an endorsement from Mr. Peanut and couldn't transition that into a contract.
Oh, Missy Elliott's been retweeting everything he says lately.
Too much time effing around, not enough time getting it done. Seal the deal. And if you need to take that biblically with Missy, then you do what you got to do.
That's a bad
word.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that would do wonders for his career?
And Mr. Peanut's a bad MF too when we're talking about it.
Absolutely. You think he just walks around with a monocle and a top hat and doesn't take guff?
You're right. And the number one punter in the game also.
Bam.
Gave him some marks.
So now, like the first 3 minutes of this episode, pep talk to Dylan Bostic. Quit effing around, get it effing done.
Then maybe we should just make that the title of this episode.
If he would listen.
Yeah, Dylan Bostic, quit effing around. The
point of all of this, and apparently to call DB out for being a DB and not getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
What do I got to do, man?
Yeah.
Step one.
Well, since you also mentioned BWE, that was our backyard fed when we were kids, the Backyard Wrestling Entertainment with an E, not a federation, because there were a lot of backyard wrestling federations. That's a story for another day. So keep listening.
Oh, that's a good one,
We'll get there. So how do you get into this? Yeah. So I would get asked that question all the time. When I'm on all these other prestigious podcasts, that's like the first question they ask me. Like art speaker.
You have to just do it, too.
And hopefully Drink Culture at some point.
Drink Culture, you know who hosts that? No, wait, sorry, that's not Drink Culture. Do you know our boy Blaine has a podcast?
Really?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Hidden Indie.
It's got to be bad.
If Hidden Indie asks, you say yes.
Well, I'm gonna, because if I'm comparing dicks with a guy we graduated with, I'm gonna win.
Shout out Hidden Indie.
Yeah, so follow that. I'll be on soon, hopefully. And we're not even friends on Facebook, but I'll add him. Well, no, I can't add him. He's got to add me.
It's true.
It's a power play.
But look, any man with a high C juice box tattooed on his thigh,
what?
He's the dude you want to interview or be on his show.
Jesus. So if you wanted to be a professional wrestler, there's a few things you're going to do. There's essentially, I tell people there's a trade school. There's a college you go to for it.
Is there also a union?
There's not a union. That's been a sticking point for decades among performers, that there's no union. But I'll tell you about my journey into wrestling. And then if you decide you want to do the same thing I did, fair enough.
I think that's legit.
Cool. So yeah, 33 now. By the time you're 45, 46, stuff's going to start paying off and you're going to be doing great. And you'll be traveling the world being a big international superstar.
I'm just going the Brooklyn Brawler route. Not when he was actually a worker, but now.
Like, you want to be a backstage guy?
No. Sometimes he steps into the ring. He does very little.
Yeah. He doesn't have to
paid.
Let me know how that goes, man, because I'm more than interested in transitioning to that.
Start drinking.
Yeah, I gotta. When I was 13, I saw professional wrestling on TV for the first time. I saw WWE SmackDown. It was April 2000.
Dad, you're a late bloomer.
I am. I'm really late. So I wasn't into this when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and Hulk Hogan and the flashy guys like the Ultimate Warrior caught my eye. I came later, so I appreciated a different style of performer when I was 13. I found out what wrestling was. I decided I was all about it. I would bug my parents into getting the pay-per-views, and sometimes we got the pay-per-views, and it was awesome. Although the first one I got, there was a schmaz finish. Like, there wasn't a clean victory. And I was pissed because it was like 30 or $40.
Now, when it's time to put your parents in a home, you remember all the pay-per-views they got for you. Make sure you put them in a good one.
You're right. Then I will remind me when it comes this time. So when I was like 15, 16, the internet was kind of becoming a thing. Because remember, when we were young, it wasn't a thing.
It's true. We were alive in a world before internet.
Yeah. So when I was 16, we would get on AOL dial-up, which might take multiple minutes to get on. And when you were on, which had to be through a home phone line, no one could use a home phone line. So we could only be on the internet for like 20 or 30 minutes at a time, right? So when I was dialing up internet, I had found out there were wrestling schools through magazines. I decided I was going to look up wrestling schools around me. After searching for probably months, I found 2. Found one in Louisville, which was Ohio Valley Wrestling. And then I found one in Marion, Indiana, which was the Extreme Wrestling Federation.
Well, man, how did you choose?
So that's complex.
I mean, one sounds fine, and the other sounds friggin' extreme.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I knew OVW had some connections to WWE, right? But I only found 2 wrestling schools. So I was like, they both have to be legitimate. And both websites were great. They both had awesome performers. I'd been to OVW shows, and those were good. I decided to go to a few EWF shows, and those were really good.
Any names still working on either of them?
There are a few names from EWF still working. Now, on the OVW shows, I got to see people like John Cena. Before John Cena was John Cena.
No kidding.
Yeah, like the prototype. I got to see like those, a couple of guys like that, like Batista and stuff before he was Batista. On EWF, though, they had a couple awesome groups of guys. I was like, oh man, this show is great. Plus, I was probably blinded by the fact that I was a kid that close to wrestling. So I was when I turned 17, I was able to convince my parents to let me go to wrestling school. Only trouble was OVW was in Louisville, 2-ish hours away. Marion was 1 hour-ish away. I couldn't go to OVW while I was still in high school, senior year. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go to EWF in Marion because I can do that while I'm a high school senior.
Could you also be on the bowling team? Could you juggle both?
I did. Somehow, I did.
2-sport athlete, baby.
I know. I didn't. Why? How come I didn't get a letter jacket ever? That on top of my band letters from freshman year.
Bam.
Mm-hmm. So I decided I'm going to go to EWF in Marion. Now, remind me to come back to the website thing later. Go up to Marion. I meet the guy who runs the show. Seems like a really cool guy. He's also like 500 and some pounds. And he talks a really good game. Not much has changed in 15 years. We're still friends. Except for the fact that now he's more like 330 pounds. Still talks a good game.
Subway eater?
Probably now. Yeah. Back in the day, no. Conveniently, the EWF arena at 3400 South Adams Street in Marion was next to a Pizza King and a Penguin Point.
I don't know what Penguin Point is.
Don't ever go.
Gotcha.
One of the few places I've ever gotten food poisoning from. Disgusting. Legit. Penguin Point might be the most disgusting place I've ever been. Also, Pizza King next door to the EWF arena, when I first started going there, had like 3 bullet holes in the glass. But that didn't stop us from eating at Pizza King. And then maybe like 6-7 months later, we showed up one day and they were replacing the glass. So there was brand new Pizza King glass. Next week, we went up to the next show, 2 bullet holes.
Did you put the holes in there?
No, but I really hope that a gangster who'd reformed or that part of town had gotten better just thought, no, we can't let that happen. Like they were out of the drive-by game, but they were like, you know what? They're not going to take away that work from us, like a graffiti tag.
Oh, yeah. So it's just like pop, pop.
Yeah, so they just went ahead and like waited till it was like 2 a.m. There was no one there, and they fired off too. I hope that's what happened. Like if I was a graffiti artist, I did great graffiti on a wall. They covered it up. I'm going to do it again. Yeah,
hopefully no one got injured, but hopefully Pizza King learned.
Yeah, I have no interest in somebody getting killed from that drive-by. I just think that that's some work that should be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the old EWF arena was like a broken down auto garage or something like that. It was like a semicircle roof. So it came down so low on one side that 2 corners of the ring, you actually couldn't jump to the top rope because the roof was too close. But you could go up to the top rope on the other sides. But there was also a beam that ran across one of those corners. So in theory, if you wanted to go to the top rope, you could only go to the top rope from the southeast corner.
So forgive me here, not in the industry. There's plenty of groundwork that can be done.
Yeah.
Hitting the ropes, doing whatever, I'm sure. But it would be my layman's opinion that most of the stuff that you probably need to learn a good bit of technique involves you going either off of the ropes or over the ropes. The stuff where you could really hurt yourself and you need somebody to take you through point by point and practice, but you couldn't do any of these things there.
Oh, from one corner you could.
Sweet.
From one corner you could. Yeah, it didn't stop people on shows from trying to go up to the other corners. They did sometimes. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't work.
Did someone knock themselves out on a beam or the ceiling or something?
I never saw it happen, but it had to have happened.
Man.
There was one show actually where I went up to the corner, one of the corners, and crazy enough, I wasn't paying any attention at all. My adrenaline was running. I stood up, but when I stood up with like my spine curved at the perfect angle to fit into the ceiling. So I didn't even touch the ceiling. I jumped off and I was fine. But I don't know how that happened. It's like I just knew instinctually.
Your scoliosis saved your life.
Yeah, it did. So I started going up to this wrestling school in Marion. They really didn't teach me much. Like I got to learn a few of the basics, but they cashed my check really swiftly and efficiently. You know what I mean?
Did you pay by semester?
No. So you could pay like $2,000 if you did installments, or you could pay $1,200 up front. And I thought, you know what? It'd be stupid to not pay $1,200 up front. So I should probably just write that check.
Yeah, man. You still feel like that was the smarter decision?
I feel differently now.
Was this like Never Back Down? It's just some crap old gym, and you walk in and you're like troubled youth, and then bam.
Well, I thought, I guess this is probably how everyone starts. Probably everyone starts this way. The guy that ran the school, he couldn't even get in the ring to show us stuff. So only other random dudes from the area in Marion that show up could show us stuff. Now, I went to a few shows before, and like I said, those shows were great. Trouble was, I didn't realize at the time that they run a weekly show, and the same crew of people that come in aren't the same crew of people that would do the training. So there was a crew of awesome dudes from Michigan. There was a crew of awesome dudes from Ohio. There were a couple other really good local guys, and they would just come there during weeks where they pretty much didn't have other shows. So some weeks EWF was amazing. Other weeks EWF was not so amazing. And the guys who were maybe not so amazing were the trainers.
Is it an effective teaching method to be all like, hey man, learn from my mistakes?
These people didn't think they'd made mistakes.
Oh, so like people in the gym who are like all herky-jerky and whatnot, they're doing it right?
Yeah,
and they instruct others how to do that?
Yeah, exactly. That's them. Now, I could now, from my experience, be like, hey, man, I made these mistakes. Don't make them. And that makes sense. These guys, however, did not realize that they hadn't had successful careers.
Well, give me a quick piece of advice. What's the first thing new people do that they get themselves hurt?
First thing you got to do is learn how to take a back bump, which was where you just fall straight back and land flat. Because that's what our business revolves around, is that flat back landing. And that hurts like hell, but there's a way to do it where in theory it won't paralyze you.
Now, that's important. That's pretty vital to your early on training. How long do you think it took an instructor to help you with that?
So actually they told me how to do it. I did one that was almost perfect. They were like, hey, actually change this. My second one was perfect.
Okay, Rain Man. You way to just crap all over my example.
It was. My second one was perfect. Almost everything I did in training, the second time I did everything was about perfect. Luckily, but I was just paying attention to how they were doing it. And I was like, I can mimic that. And I did.
So wrestling's easy is what I'm hearing.
It's so easy. Yeah, so easy. In the time I was there, the few months I was training, we had 4 or 5 new guys come in, pay all their money, do 1 or 2 things. They could never learn to back bump. They could never learn to take an arm drag, and they just left. One guy was there for 2 or 3 months. They started putting him on shows when he shouldn't have been on shows. He didn't learn how to do any of that stuff right. Quit because people were beating him up a little bit, and then he just moved to Northern Indiana and opened up his own wrestling school. And that's how wrestling goes.
And that's why Chris Jericho is a legend. Was it not him?
It wasn't. It wasn't him. So, that's also how there's so many bad wrestling schools nowadays, because anyone can get a ring and anyone can claim to be a trainer, and it's the worst. There's only 2 or 3 good schools to go to. So if anyone listening wants to go to a school at some point, just please ask me.
Now, how's the website game, though?
So, yeah, the website is great. Long story short with this story. Oh, by the way, sometimes I would drive that hour, 10 minutes to training, I would try to go 3 days a week. And 1 or 2 days a week, someone would actually show up to unlock the door and train me.
If no one's there, you just don't have access to the building.
Yep.
So what, you just sit in your car?
Yep. I would sit out back or like at the side of the building, just waiting, hoping someone shows up. And about half the time, no one would. And I would just be there in a really bad part of town in my car and just like seeing all the shadiness that was going on behind the auto shop connected next to the building, and then Pizza King and Penguin Point.
So you're just there hanging out, shooting holes in a Pizza King window.
Yeah, pretty much. It was that part of town.
So did you just bail? Was there anything you could do worthwhile?
No, nothing. I would just stay in my car, and I'm always early anyway. So if training was 5 to 7, I would get there at 4:15-ish or like 4:30. I'd drive straight from school, and then I would just hang out until maybe 6. Because if I made that whole drive, well, if somebody shows up at 6, because sometimes, people would show up to open the doors and we would train at 5, but Marion guys would show up at like 6 and stay for just 30 or 40 minutes. So I'd wait till 6 just in case someone showed up, because there were 3 or 4 people with keys.
Is this back in the days of your van?
No, I had it in my car.
Which one?
I had a Firebird.
Oh, so you couldn't even stretch out and read or anything, man.
No. I had my sexy Firebird.
That Firebird was dope.
It
T-tops and everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm lucky that it got me to and from there so much, because mechanically it, wasn't the best maybe.
That's not what what is important. In your teens, first car, just got to look cool.
Yeah. So, and then one night when I was driving home from training on a day where no one showed up, I was driving out through the country, 281st and State Road, 238, and I pulled out in front of a dude and got T-boned by this drunk driver who was going like 80 and wrapped my car into a little wall. Oh, he could have killed me. But that was a night where no one showed up to training.
So, worth it?
Totally worth it. Yep. So that was wrestling school experience number 1, and every time someone showed up, they would just all beat me up. Like they taught me some, but they pretty much just beat me up because you haze. Like that's what people do. Real stupid.
You probably had it coming, if we're being honest.
I guess. And then, back to the website game. Later on, I became friends with the webmaster from EWF. His name is Damon. We're good friends until this day. So every now and then, I'll still bring up the fact that, oh, hey, man, thanks for really screwing me over, because the website was the deciding factor.
So step 1, wrestling school, but not a crap one.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
And then a year and a half later, I went to another wrestling school in Cincinnati that used to be really good. But by the time I got there, it was no longer really good. And the trainer just wanted to make a lot of money. So he cashed a lot of checks, and I didn't learn anything. But at least I could kind of tell people he trained me, and I had some name value attached to me. And then 3 or 4 years later, I met my mentor, and he actually kind of helped. You pretty much just learned on the job.
I was going to say, none of this is particularly uplifting.
It's not.
So
it's a particularly not uplifting business.
Spend money on ineffective training. Gotcha. Step 1.
Yeah. That's the most humbling way to start. A lot of people start in really nice buildings and stuff like that, and they get good training right away, and they get all posh, and they don't know what it's like to pay a due.
BWE did have a very well-groomed lawn. I suppose I was a little spoiled there.
We had a good training system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like some of our training system was better than my initial pro wrestling training system.
I feel like my agent just signed me up for a show, so I went there. I wouldn't say I got any training except moments before the show.
You were a big star at the time. You were more popular in high school than the rest of us. You were a big signing.
It's true. And I think I was one of the early adopters of the gym. However, if I had to do it again, I would rather be a late adopter to the gym because I still go now, but the diet is out the window. So I'd like to do it your way than my way.
You were pretty much the Brock Lesnar of our company. You came in and messed stuff up.
And now I'm like the Rick Foley of DJing.
It's a combination of a couple names, but yeah.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. Mick Foley is Mankind, didn't he?
You said Rick Foley.
I said Rick? Oh, crap. I really meant Mick Foley. If I did, I'm sorry to Mankind, but I just meant the physique is now closer to
Mick Foley. Yeah. Hey, it's all right. You had a good run.
It's true. Went out on top.
But that's how you get into wrestling, man. You give one dude a lot of money and they shaft you, and then you give another dude a lot of money and they shaft you, and maybe things work out.
Dope.
Yep. So at Off the Cliff Pod, at JComan2012, and at Multimedia Muscle is Pete. And we will catch you next week.